I was just making very reckless, impulsive decisions.
Heidi Montag's obsession with plastic surgery actually caused her life to unexpectedly end.
I was too young to be making decisions like that are life-altering. Thank God I'm okay. And
thankfully, she was able to be revived, but the whole thing was extremely traumatic. But does that mean Heidi is done making changes to her appearance? Let's break down her crazy surgical transformation and how things took a terrifying turn for her. Heidi recently dropped a shocking bombshell during an episode of Page Six's virtual reality podcast. She revealed that back in 2009, she had a total of 10 cosmetic procedures done in just one day. Heidi wanted to get all of her surgeries out of the way before filming started for the final season of The Hills. She felt so insecure about how she looked because of the pressure of being in the spotlight. But the other reason why she desperately wanted so many cosmetic changes was heartbreaking. Heidi and Spencer Pratt had been portrayed as the villains of the series, so they were already targets for criticism. But people online also wrote cruel comments about Heidi's appearance, which seriously impacted her self-esteem and confidence. Heidi was under the impression that she'd be fully recovered within a few months. She scheduled the 10-hour operation with her plastic surgeon at the time, the late Dr. Frank Ryan, but she planned on getting minor procedures in the form of injectables as well. Even though Heidi barely had any fine lines because she was only 23 years old, she decided to get Botox injections around her eyes, forehead, and mouth. She also got a little bit of lip filler, which plumped her lips without making them look really swollen and unnatural. Heidi also felt self-conscious about how much her ears stuck out, so she had a procedure done to pin them back. After she recovered, her ears did seem to lay flatter against the sides of her head, but the next facial feature she changed had one of the most painful healing processes. Heidi decided to get a nose job, which she previously had done 3 years earlier. Before the second surgery, her nose looked so nice. Afterward, it was noticeably thinner. The bridge bone of her nose had been lowered as well, which made it appear smaller overall. Heidi's eyebrows were slightly arched before, and they seemed to naturally suit her face really well, but after getting a mini brow lift, the arches of her brows were much higher. Because the area around her brow bone had been raised, her eyes looked a little more open. Heidi also had a chin reduction, which apparently is a very intense surgery and recovery. Before, her chin was one of her strongest features, which she felt made her look more masculine. Heidi's chin also jutted out a bit, which caused her profile to appear kind of crescent-shaped. And because she didn't have super prominent cheekbones, that made her face seem really elongated. But afterward, the shape of her chin looked incredibly different. Heidi's chin reduction clearly changed her profile because the lower portion of it had been totally removed. Her face appeared to have a shorter, softer shape overall, partly because she had fewer extreme angles around her chin. But one of the most bizarre procedures Heidi had that day was liposuction. When most people hear the word liposuction, they probably think of a person having fat removed from their abdominal area. But the different types that she had done were honestly insane. To tell you the truth, I don't think Heidi needed any of the fat removal in the first place, since she was far from being overweight. But apparently, she wanted certain parts of her body to look much slimmer, and one of those areas was truly unexpected. Heidi decided to have liposuction done on her neck, but she was already thin and relatively young at the time. It's not like she had sagging skin or even fat under the jaw. The end result was that Heidi's collarbone looked more pronounced. It was definitely visible before though, which made it seem even more strange that she would want liposuction on her neck. But that wasn't the only place she had fat removed. Heidi also had liposuction on her hips, inner and outer thighs, and her waist. But because she was already pretty slim before, the change in her appearance after the operation was extremely noticeable. Post-procedure, Heidi's entire abdominal region looked incredibly taut. It's completely normal, even for athletic people, to have a little bit of body fat around the lower part of their stomach. But after liposuction, Heidi didn't even have the tiniest sign of a belly. But this wasn't the only reason why her midsection looked so thin and unnaturally flawless. Heidi also majorly increased the size of her chest, which was actually the second time she'd had that type of operation. In 2007, Heidi had surgery to enlarge her cup size from A's to C's, but during her dangerous day of procedures 2 years later, she decided to go much bigger. Heidi wanted to boost her cup size again, this time from C's to F's. Even after her 2007 surgery, her chest still appeared to be natural, but after the second enlargement, her chest looked painfully disproportionate to her thin body. Not surprisingly, Heidi's waist had slightly more of an hourglass shape after the liposuction. However, her insanely large chest made her waist look extraordinarily small. But there's another reason why her body appeared to be leaner after that day, and it's unbelievable. Heidi also chose to have a surgery done called back scooping. This is a form of micro liposuction that's actually meant for targeting a person's sides and lower back. Heidi's back looked pretty normal before the procedure, and she didn't seem to have any areas with excessive fat at all. So even though it made her back appear to be more sculpted, it didn't really make a huge difference. However, all of Heidi's fat removal procedures combined left her frame looking very thin, and what she asked her plastic surgeon to do next was absolutely unreal. Some of the fat that had been removed from Heidi's body actually ended up being injected into her face. She had fat transferred to her cheeks and the middle area of her face, which added more dimension. But the other place she had fat transferred to was so bizarre. Heidi decided to have fat injected into her backside, if you catch my drift. Before, she felt felt like it looked smaller than she wanted. The transferred fat did end up slightly increasing the size and rounding out the shape of her backside without looking totally fake. Finally, the surgeon's part of Heidi's transformation was over. But as soon as she woke up, she was in a lot of pain from having so many cosmetic changes done in one visit. She was given medication to help control her pain, but what happened next was shocking. Heidi had been given way too much of the heavy pain medication. The dose was so large that it actually stopped her heart. Heidi's security guards were in the recovery room with her, so they called Spencer to break the tragic news to him. Before Spencer arrived at the surgery center, the medical team managed to bring Heidi back to life. Her life had technically ended for about a minute, but fortunately, she was revived. But when she was released and sent home, she realized she was so unprepared. Heidi's recovery process was so slow and painful. She had to hire nurses to stay with her around the clock because she couldn't even take care of herself. She was still struggling with the pain when filming started, which resulted in her and Spencer leaving the series early. Over a year later, Heidi revealed during an interview with Life in Style that she had serious regrets. She had raised lumps of scar tissue where she'd had fat removed from her lower back. The fat injections had also left inflamed bumps that were still so painful. Heidi was devastated by how obvious the scars were from her procedures. She explained that she hated even looking at herself in the mirror. But what she had finally come to terms with about her appearance was seriously crazy. Heidi was even more disappointed by the scar tissue because she realized that she hadn't needed liposuction anyway, but she had an unbelievable amount of visible reminders from her other operations too. Heidi had super dark scars along her hairline and one underneath her chin as well. She was also left with big, uneven scars on the back of her ears. But the dark raised marks on her skin weren't the only lasting effects of her cosmetic changes. Heidi confessed that she was still experiencing a ton of pain all over her body and face. She couldn't really wash her face anymore because it hurt too much to even lightly touch her nose. Overall, Heidi had so many regrets about all of the procedures she'd had done during the same visit. She claimed that the negative effects definitely outweighed the benefits. At the time, she actually wished that she hadn't had any of the cosmetic changes done. Now, Heidi still doesn't recommend getting really extreme plastic surgeries. She revealed during the podcast that she didn't completely regret all of the procedures anymore, but she wished she had gone about getting them in a different way. Heidi admitted that she should have waited until she was older to get such major operations done, but because she barely survived after being given the incorrect amount of pain medication, she felt the need to share a serious warning. Heidi stressed that being careful with heavy pain meds during recovery is so important because a wrong dose could end someone's life. She really is lucky to still be alive after such a close call. Heidi seems to have a much easier time accepting her appearance now than she used to. It's hard to tell if she's actually done with plastic surgery though, because she's had a few more procedures since her scary experience. Heidi was a natural beauty, but over the years she's made so many changes to her appearance. She's gone through a crazy amount of cosmetic procedures, and now she almost looks like a totally different person. Even though Heidi claimed that she doesn't regret everything she's done, it doesn't sound like her series of surgeries in 2009 was worth it. Hopefully, she's able to accept her appearance and doesn't decide to risk her life again with another startling transformation. But now that we've talked about Heidi's plastic surgery experience from 2009 and how she almost didn't survive, I want to know what you guys think. Are you surprised that her surgeon allowed her to undergo 10 procedures in one day? What are your thoughts on Heidi's insane transformation and the regrets she later expressed about it? Let me know in the comments below.